here we are. It's October
First.
1st of
Whole new month.
06.
2006. And we had a nice morning today and a service together, and Jacob and Jordan and Neil and Curtis and you guys and Beans in the park, and
Daniel's with him.
so anyway, I guess just having read the history, I got to thinking there are questions and things I don't know about you guys, and so it just seemed like, it would be nice to have it, and then we have somebody with a special 80th birthday coming up, and
wonder who that is.
So I think what I'd like to do first, Dad, kind of maybe thinking ahead for that, is to ask you a few questions, and then there's a few questions I have for Mom and a few for both of you. So
you did that before.
But I got to thinking, I knew that you were from Canton, but not a lot about what happened in your life and when you were a child. There are a few stories here and there, but where was your home? Did you live in Canton or in the country, or?
Oh, we lived in the country first, and then they moved to town.
Mm-hmm.
Bought a house.
So how old were you when you moved to town then?
I think I was around 12, 13 maybe.
Okay. So when you say moved to town, you moved to Canton then?
Yeah.
So you had gone to a country school prior to that?
Yeah. Mole school.
Mall school.
Matter of fact, we got that picture at home of you.
Yeah, I've
that?
seen it.
Yeah.
So
I don't know, it must have been in about 39 or 40 that they moved to town.
So were all the children born, all your siblings, by then? Or?
Yeah, Bob must have been born by
Bob
then,
was
too.
born 36.
So what's your memory of it, Dad?
I don't know, it was a tough old time, We grew up in the 30s. Nobody had anything.
So
everybody was equal.
Yeah.
So did you have electricity, or?
Well, we always did. We always had a Delco plant.
Oh.
They did have electricity.
So what does a Delco plant mean?
Well, that was just a different type of electricity.
Is that where they had the batteries in the basement?
They had batteries,
or something?
yeah, and then they charged the batteries. So.
So you'd run lights?
32 volts, see, it wasn't high voltage, see.
Uh-huh.
I guess they had motors, they could run their washing machine with it.
No indoor plumbing?
Yeah, we did
You
there,
did?
yeah.
Well, that was good.
Yeah.
So yeah, you were privileged compared to some then.
Yeah.
Didn't have that when we first got married, though.
No.
Oh.
So anyway, they moved to town, and it seemed like I always went out. I worked for many farmers around, and I never cared much for the town stuff. I did things there too. I worked at the console grocery store carrying out groceries.
Oh.
I worked at Coast to Coast fixing their bicycles.
Yeah, he wanted to name Nancy Ann, because he worked at Council Oak. That was the name of their bread.
Oh.
Well, anyway,
And you got Ann instead.
We didn't have much. You made do with what you had. And I think you'll find that of all the people that kind of grew up in that era. You didn't throw anything away.
That's where you get it.
Yeah. You don't know. You probably need it for something, so. About it.
So it was all hand-me-downs and patch clothes and that kind of thing?
Well, you and Kenny worked together to get a bicycle.
Well, we worked one summer for neighbors and stuff.
They put their money together and bought I suppose it was used by.
But we were young then. We were probably 10, 11 years old. So I know Kenny, he got 35 cents a day, but I only got a quarter because I was young.
So that's when you worked at the Council Oak?
No,
No,
out in
that
the country.
that
Out in
was
the
before we
country?
moved to town, yeah.
So doing neighbors' chores and things?
Oh, no, I helped them with haying and mowing.
hard work.
And I'd run a horse and cultivator and a bucker when they'd stack hay and, you know.
Huh. So they did it with
and
horse?
Hay, yeah, and hay rake, you know. I'd
Like
rake
your
hay.
boys' ages,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
that young,
Mhm.
working out with men.
It seemed like you shared one time about riding on a horse, and there were 3 of you or something?
Well, we did that to go into
go to
the
school?
school, yeah.
So was that a common thing, and what would you do with the horse at school?
They had a barn,
Oh. Oh.
put it in a barn,
So it was like a one-room school, and
yeah,
through what grades?
from 1 to 8.
Uh-huh.
And there was one teacher. She had all 8 grades and 22 children,
In all 8 grades?
yeah. Then they, not only that, but they'd get up and then they'd have to walk to school in the morning. They,
The teacher.
yeah, I usually stayed, I think the teacher mostly stayed up at the Mo's door with Oscars. And she'd walk to school. And she'd have to get there early in the winter to get the furnace all stoked up and get it warm by the time the kids got there.
Mm-hmm.
School didn't have
Yeah.
indoor plumbing, did they?
No, we carried water in.
Mm-hmm.
And
And then
then-
you had outhouses for
Yeah.
restroom?
And then that poor teacher, then afterwards, why she'd stay over, you know, and she'd have to do all the janitor work and sweep the floors and stuff
Mhm.
before she'd go home at night.
Mm-hmm. So they did more than teaching, and
Yeah, they,
Did everything?
made
Yeah.
sure the kids had their mittens on before they walked home and all those kinds of
it's
things.
a
and-
different era than it was now, you
So were you a good student?
know. I don't know.
Were you a
Well,
daydreamer, or
I
did you
was
play
kinda-
little pranks?
I was
or-
kind of a daydreamer to start with. I got up to about the 6th or 7th grade. We had a teacher by the name of Peters, Miss Peters. And she sure had me figured out because she could get me to, and I got such good grades, you know, because she'd get me to do all the work. She knew just how to handle it, so,
So it does make a difference.
yeah.
So then when you moved into town, and then you were about, what, 15 or 16 when you started
No, he was
doing
only
hiring out to
about
farmers?
12 or
or-
13.
Oh,
when he
no,
moved to
you know, I'd, in the summertime then, why,
Mhm.
there wasn't work, I'd go to different
Mhm.
farmers.
So were your parents still together during that time?
Well, they did kind of separate. My dad went out to the West Coast to find better work. He was kind of a house painter around town.
Oh, okay. So he didn't do farming?
Well, he just farmed it for a while, see, but, you know, he started in 36 and a complete drop,
Mhm.
you know, so
Yeah.
it was against him. So.
Mhm. And he had a family, there were all of you, and
Well, that was after the war, wasn't it, when Grandpa went out there?
No,
or
he
up
went, it was
Before?
before, yeah.
Because he worked in the shipyards.
So, what is your memory of your father? He came from Norway, is that his
Mhm.
history? On the west coast or something he came in, or did he come in New York?
He came in,
Oh, through the New York harbor.
yeah, he came from,
How old was he, Dad, do you remember that?
I think he was 20 when he came.
Okay. So how did he meet your mom, do you know that
Well,
story?
Yeah, see, Oscar was here already, and Oscar had gotten a job.
That was his brother?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and Oscar worked at the Mo's store, and then, you know, he'd be over there. Grandma, or my mother, only lived half a mile from the church was right there, you know, Land's church. Well, I'm sure that's the way they got married, you know.
Mhm.
And my dad he was very musical.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, he could play the violin, and he could play banjo, and he could play the piano, and,
Wow.
yeah. And he was a good singer too.
I have a memory of him when he lived with
Emo.
Emo. But he had emphysema probably from house painting.
Cardiac
No.
asthma, they call it.
Yeah.
Asthma.
Yeah, it was,
Cardiac asthma.
But I remember him humming all the time.
That
Yeah.
helped him breathe better, more evenly.
Mm.
well, you know, I felt kind of sorry because, you know, he really ended up with practically nothing, you know.
Well, he got hurt when he was working out on the West Coast.
Oh, he
too.
did.
Oh, yeah.
Was he doing house painting and he fell or something?
No.
And then he was working in a ship.
Oh, a shipyard?
Yeah, I don't know just how it happened, really.
A cable or who knows, huh? Oh. But you saw your dad in later years then. Again, he
Oh,
moved
yeah.
back to
Well,
Canton.
after we were married, he came back to live with Rachel, right?
Yeah.
Mhm. That was,
His sister,
his sister was Rachel.
Amos's wife, his sister Rachel.
Okay.
And she was never married before, but she had a child she left in Norway when she came. That was good for her.
Oh. But it seems like I remember you telling me that you were with your dad when he passed on.
Yes,
That's when we lived in Minnesota.
and, you know, he'd had a problem. He drank too much, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And, so he ended up, you know, he kind of lost his family. They separated. You know, they didn't divorce, but they were
Mhm.
separated.
Yeah.
And,
He stayed mostly with Rachel.
when he came back,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
He stayed with us a while in Minnesota.
yeah.
But so it was the asthmatic stuff that,
And his,
Kind of.
and
How old was
having
he?
gotten hurt when he was
Oh,
out on the
okay.
West Coast. That didn't help.
He died, he was 66 when he
oh
died.
my, that's the age Bean is now.
Yeah.
Hmm. And it was from that, the
Yeah.
breathing thing and the injury, whatever that was. But
But
you were
that-
at his bedside.
Yeah,
He left
And
Minnesota to
that-
go down because he was sick, yeah.
yeah, Doris called up, so I drove down there alone. And it was down Hayward. And we were both, Doris and I were there. And he was kind of in a coma. And he kind of came to. He looked up and he saw me and he said in Norwegian, "Jesus, Jesus," see?
Mm.
So that's who he was looking for.
Mm.
So I guess, you know, if I could be that fortunate, why, that would be wonderful.
Mhm. So through the years you hadn't had a lot of interaction with him, but to know at those final moments that we all have one father that we will meet together. So by then you had been living in Minnesota,
Oh, yeah, we.
and so you had already accepted the Lord by that time then. So that even had a greater meaning than it would have before.
Yeah.
Then did. So, Grandma Nordley, I often hear, stories, and I think Nancy has shared with me how she prayed for the generations that weren't even born yet. And,
Oh, yeah. I still think her prayers are helping us, you know, really.
Mhm. It's like a
She-
cup in heaven.
She was such a Christian woman, you know, really.
What's your memory of her? Tell me some
Well,
of her.
Well, everything. She was just concerned about everybody's welfare, you know, and it wasn't just the soul work, you know, she'd help them, and she'd sew clothes for her brother's kids, for Henry's
girls.
Yeah. She was always doing something, you know.
And she took Catherine in from the
Yeah.
orphan train.
Oh, that was from the orphan train. I was wondering how
And
that
she,
came about.
I know when I was a kid, I used to stay with her, and then we would go to, she'd always go to these tent meetings that they'd have in them days, see.
Like a revival type thing
So,
that they.
cause I know she used to take me along with her, you know, to a lot of them, so.
So she was an example.
Oh, she was
Her
exactly.
grandfather must have been too, though.
She was a good example of Christianity. Now my grandfather, he died when I was 1935, see, I was 2.
So you weren't very old. Do you
You were
have
8,
some
about
memory
8.
of him?
Oh, yeah.
But,
Was he a farmer?
yeah, he was farming. And, I used to go and stay at their place when I was little. Matter of fact, one time, why, we were going down the road with Grandma. Doris was in the front seat, or in the back with me. And we were gonna go stay with Grandma for a few days. And here,
And Grandma was driving.
I noticed the back door, it had them suicide doors, see, so,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they opened to the
Yeah.
front. And, I don't know, I suppose I might have been 4 years old or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
not over that. And, so I'd seen the older people, they'd open it and shut it again when they were going, but I didn't realize that they were going such slow speed when they did it, see. So I pushed down on the handle and boom, I flew right out the door, see, 45, 50 miles an hour.
No,
What was
they
your-
didn't go that fast then.
What was your thought when that was happening?
Well, I came out of the ditch again and they didn't stop and I thought they were gonna leave me there. But Doris was so scared she couldn't even tell Grandma to stop.
So Grandma was driving then,
Yeah,
huh?
so, but then they turned around and
Grandma Nordley, I mean.
yeah, they took me back to Canton.
Huh. Seems that I remember growing up, you would tell us that story, and then you'd say that's why you fell on your head and you had no hair on your
Gravel
head.
and-
Yeah, I did a lot of times. I
So
fell.
were you hurt?
Basically, no. A lot of gravel in my head. This Dr. Laney had just gotten to Canton. So Grandma took me in there. And he told me later he'd never picked so much gravel out of one person's head in his life, you know.
Oh, did it hurt? Do you remember it?
No, I was young. But they took me home, you know, and then they thought I probably shouldn't go to sleep, but I didn't. I didn't go to sleep, you know, and I slept. It was okay.
Huh.
But then another time while we were down at Grandma Nordley's, and I was sliding down the banister that we weren't supposed to do. And I went over the side and I lit with my head right on the piano bench.
Corner of the bench.
But then I had
Double vision.
double vision for months, you know. So nowadays, why that fractured skull, you know, or what it would be.
Wow.
You know, so.
Wow.
But see, in those times, you didn't go to the doctors or anything,
Yeah.
unless you really had to.
Well, I'm sure because of a praying grandma.
Yeah.
That was helpful. So was your mother, you know, my memory of Grandma Fladmark was that she was, you know, quite a Christian lady too. So was she, you know, did you go to church all the time when you were growing up? Or?
Pretty much, you know. Well, then after we got older, I suppose we probably started skipping, you know, more.
Yeah.
Well, you stayed with Pete then.
Well, at the
Later.
weekends, most of the time I'd come, well, only every other weekend I'd have to do chores up there.
So this Pete mom mentioned that you stayed with, what was his name?
It was Pete Stike.
Pete Stike. And he had a farm?
Yeah,
And you were living in town then?
yeah,
And so you'd go stay at his farm?
yeah, I'd stay there during the week, you know.
In the summer.
And
Well, when you went to
even
school for a while.
When they
yeah.
get busy with field work, well, then I stay at them.
So then you'd work there and you wouldn't go to school because
Yeah, I went to
You went to
school.
school.
you'd still go during
Yeah.
those days,
Yeah.
they'd take you in,
I'd
or?
drive his car to school
Uh-huh.
and see. But, we had help with chores in the morning.
Oh,
chores
yeah.
in the evening.
Mhm. So it seems like I remembered a story too, that Grandma Fladmark at the house she was at didn't have a furnace or something happened, and so you were able to take some of the money you earned, was that at
Oh, yeah.
Pete's Dykes, and you and maybe, was it your brothers too, or
No,
were
it
you
was just
able
me.
to? Wow, so you were like
Daughter and
15,
brother.
16 or
Oh,
something?
no, I was older then. I
Oh.
suppose I was probably 17, 18.
Okay.
something like
In
that.
high school then?
Was Kenny already gone then?
Yeah, Kenny was in the service then. But then Kenny, he gave Mom part of his check when he was in the service too, all them years that
Wow.
he was in there.
Yeah, they could do that, dependency check.
Cause she didn't really work outside the home then until after the kids were grown up, pretty
Uh,
much, or?
She did work sometimes. She worked down at
She
that.
worked at the grocery store. Oh,
Yeah, she worked at the grocery store.
And this was in Canton, right?
Yeah, and then at times.
and she oil she worked for.
She had worked down at that chicken
Oh, yeah.
poultry
Canton.
butchering place, so that was a lot of hard work that she spent into,
A lot of times during those years too, ladies would take in ironing or different things like that, but
Well, nothing,
she didn't.
a lot of times there was nothing really steady, so.
Yeah. But you took every opportunity that came along. So when you were growing up, did you always think that that's what you wanted to do was farm?
I do, yeah, I like the farm.
You liked farm? Cause you're a country boy at heart, huh?
Town wasn't the place for me.
Yeah. Why do you think you liked farming?
I
Wasn't
Why
for the
do you,
money.
why do you think you like music?
Well, I don't know. Did you enjoy watching them grow, or the challenge of it, or?
You always liked the young animals, the baby calves.
And the machinery, it was fun to work around the machinery.
Yeah.
Challenge to fix
Well,
it.
after you were done plowing, you could look back and say you got that done. It's something
Well,
you
you
could
would
look at
say that.
sometimes.
Look back
Well,
and say,
that part.
well, I gotta do it all day tomorrow too,
Yeah. At least it wasn't
But it-
having to get the prairie sod up.
It wasn't, basically, nothing is ever any worse than you think it is, really.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if you think it's bad, it's gonna be bad. If you think it's not, it's good, why? But then, after a while, you don't think about anything. It's something that has to be done, so you do it, whether you don't think whether you like it or whether you dislike it, because it doesn't make any difference. You gotta do it anyway.
Attitude. So who do you think taught you most about farming, just from your experience doing it different places, or trial and error, or?
Well, I imagine all of it, just.
Pete Stike, you
Oh,
helping him,
He
and
probably wasn't the best teacher, There was some other ones I worked for, they were really good farmers,
Mhm. So they kind of took you under their wing and kind of shared with you, or?
Oh,
People didn't really do that, they just put
They
you out
treated
to work
them like
and then.
hired men, really.
I was a hired man, was all I was.
But you'd observe at how they did it and the results that they got.
Yeah, you'd see how all the neighbors.
The fruit.
farm, how they do things.
Yeah. So were you close with any of your brothers and sisters? Close relationships growing up, or you were closest in age to
Kenny, I
Kenny?
imagine.
You were the two, well, Doris was older.
Yeah,
Was she the very oldest?
yeah.
Okay. So then it was natural for you guys to pair up and then probably,
Most
Bob
of
and
the
Dick.
time, yeah. And Kenny, you know, he always worked at Laxon's drugstore, yeah,
Mhm.
when he was in high school. And then he went in the service, and as soon as he got out of that, why, then he went to college, you know. He was a lot better student than I was. He worked hard and he was smart at it, you know, so. He ended up getting all of his education.
Mhm.
Of course, at that age, I really wasn't that interested in going to college anyways. I never had to go to the service, so.
Seemed like that story was about a leapfrog or something.
Yeah, it's a crooked arm.
Uh-huh. And so then during those times, you had gotten hurt and broke your arm?
Yeah.
And so that didn't heal straight and during those days, and if that, you wouldn't be able to shoot a gun or something, right?
Well, see, actually, if it had been any other time except, see, I turned 18 in 1945,
Oh.
fall, see.
Oh, okay.
And I went in there, they were so busy sending the people out of the army back home again because the war was over.
Mhm.
So they just marked me off at limited service, and then later on they changed it to 4F, you know, which was,
Disability.
yeah, disability.
So, what was it that brought you the most joy? I remember growing up that if we were at a gathering somewhere and I got lost in a crowd, I would always be able to just stop and I could listen and then I'd know where Dad was.
By his laugh.
By his laugh.
Well, I guess, you know, I never ever figured that I was lacking anything, you know.
Uh-huh. So you rejoiced in the blessings you did have, basically.
That was just life, you know, you just, if you had troubles, why, you didn't blame somebody else for them, you know.
But you kind of said Nellstone helped you too.
Oh, yeah, Nels was good, he was good when we got to Minnesota, you know, he showed me a lot of things on even on getting work done, you know.
How to manage your time and stuff?
Yeah, whenever you were gonna start a job, you'd figure out how long it was gonna take, and then you'd work for that to try and get it done in that time, see, so.
So God put different people in your path
Oh, yeah.
throughout our lifetime, continues to.
Yeah.
But then everything changed in your life when you met Mom. So did you notice her right away and think, that's the girl? Would you call it love at first sight?
No, she wouldn't call it love.
But I wouldn't.
No, I know. Or had you seen her before, or was that the first time you saw her, when you stole her coat?
Yeah, that was the first
Well,
time.
it might not have been the first
I
time.
think
I
it
might
was
have been
close
there
to
a
the
couple
first time.
times before too.
Well, I hadn't noticed you, I know that.
So anyway,
So then when you got married, I've always been interested in the houses, and I know this weekend we've talked a little bit about it, but the first house you lived in was where? You said
it was-
how?
it was on the Iowa side, east of Camp,
Between Canton and Inwood,
yeah,
there'd been an abandoned house,
yeah.
right along the railroad track.
And this, some relative of Hans's brother bought the farm, see, and nobody lived in it. They didn't even charge us any rent
I
for
don't
it.
think so.
Really?
Just,
I'm gonna interrupt a second and make sure that I get the sound. Okay.
anyway, Fixed it up just enough so it was nice.
About 3 rooms,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
And Grandma Rose had come down, and they did some wallpapering.
So that sounds kind of like It's a Wonderful Life, come home to this abandoned old house, but,
We took the dog with
And
us
then-
from Pete's.
Yeah.
We were afraid bums had been staying there.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
right along the railroad
uh-huh,
track.
uh-huh,
Them days they did have bums, yeah, you remember right.
yeah.
Bums, they called them, but they're not.
Hobos.
So what did you call that place? The Hudson?
Teach
That
place.
wasn't the Hudson?
The
Yeah.
Teach place.
Yeah,
The
that,
Teach
it,
place?
it ended up being the Teach place.
That's what we always called it afterwards.
Yeah, 'cause they bought it after we lived there. So.
Uh-huh. So, that was before children, then you were there, or was
Well,
Toby
then
born
we-
and you lived there still?
We only lived there for 6, 7 months, and then we rented a farm with land and everything up,
Neggleston place.
up by the Our Savior's Lutheran Church there.
Inwood.
In Inwood? Oh.
West,
Outside of
west
Inwood.
of
Near
Inwood,
it.
yeah.
So, you rented a house on a farm, or did you
We
rent the
rented
whole farm?
farm.
So how many acres was that?
A couple hundred, I think, something.
I think it was around 100.
Did you have some machinery, or
Well, we bought some.
did you have to, go to the bank, or do it
Oh,
on
yeah,
time, or?
yeah, we had to go,
Your mom helped us too.
yeah, she helped us.
I'll make sure you're in here, okay? Yep. So,
We didn't crawl out, huh?
after the Nagelstead place, then that's where you were living when Toby was born.
And Nancy.
And
And
Nancy.
Nancy,
Jim.
and Jim. So all three of them
Mhm.
there.
They were born there.
And,
Remember there was when Grandma Nordley came and Catherine stayed with us and we got an electric blanket from my dad. And she had a cold, Grandma Nordley did. We put that electric blanket on her and we hadn't used it and we turned it so high. And she sweat all night.
she woke up in the morning, her cold was gone.
She thought that blanket was so wonderful.
So anyway, we were there, I don't know, 3 years, I think, and then we were 3 years down at that Rugness place.
We
out
moved in the
Canton.
March the year after Jim was born. He was born in '52, so we moved him down to the Rugness.
So that was,
53.
so Rugness is the
March
next
of
one.
53.
that you-
And then we
And then
lived,
that's,
That was West of Lands Church on by
Oh, okay.
Hanson Doris.
I see the name Rugness because it seemed familiar in the book that we're reading. Aunt Doris's book. So then that's where Pam,
That was where I got the Lefse rolling pin. They left it there.
yeah,
oh
Pam,
really?
Pam was born there, and you were born, we were living there.
Uh-huh. So from there then, that's when you went to Minnesota?
No, we went down to Red Overset's place down west of Hudson,
For 9 months.
yeah, for 1 year.
Wasn't
So-
a whole year even.
But Red Overseth was an uncle? Your uncle?
He,
Great uncle?
No.
great uncle, yeah.
Oh, Red.
He'd
yeah.
be,
No.
he'd be my mother's cousin.
He wasn't your uncle.
Oh,
He
okay.
was my
He was
mother's
a second
first cousin.
cousin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was my uncle.
And so did you rent that farm there too? And you
Yeah.
farmed it?
We rented 1 year.
That's where he broke his ankle.
Oh, I didn't know you broke your ankle.
Yeah,
So-
Why would you do that?
he broke his ankle. Nancy was sick at the,
You were sick,
you were sick when you were born. That was all before we moved down to Red.
Oh.
and then Pam had pneumonia.
Pneumonia. And Sally went back in the hospital because she dehydrated. That was when we got the sewing machine, just before Bam was born too. We got the sewing machine, the one you have.
So you said, yeah, you said that those years were the years that you really, sounds like you were kind of pressured on. You could maybe relate to some of the things that happened with Job, all the things. It was like, when will this end? Did you have that sense, or?
I don't think so.
I do think probably that we had it to a point. 'cause that's when we got to be interested in Christianity. And we went to this one pastor, and he couldn't even give us Bible verses to comfort us, you know, and that made it feel kind of bad, you know, that there's gotta be more to that Christianity than that, you know.
Mhm.
So I think that's when we kind of started looking, and it matured more in Minnesota. Found out that the whole thing is giving your life to the Lord. After that, well, things started
But-
to get better. Yeah.
But the path was there and the
Well,
doors were
you know, he-
opening to,
Well,
That's how he guided us.
Yeah.
He, you know,
especially your dad had
Yeah.
a good example with Grandma Nordley
Yeah.
and his family, you know.
so then, Jane was born
In that house.
in the Red Overset
Mhm.
house.
By
And then
Hudson.
she was just not
3
very
weeks old, and Don and Lois took her and you
Oh,
while we moved to Minnesota, and then they brought you two up. And
Mhm.
Jane liked Don because he was bald like her dad, but she was so little she didn't even know that really.
No,
It was
It
you.
was me, I
It was
think,
you,
yeah.
yeah, because you were older, that's
Yeah.
right. It was you. Because he was bald too. He had
Mhm.
long, and they didn't have any
Mhm.
girls, they had boys.
So of course, for me, that's where my first memories are,
The
is
old
the Minnesota house.
but
First memory.
Minnesota, why, that was,
That was the toughest
yeah,
part,
that
actually.
was a tough one.
Yes.
The first year we were up there, we
It was
just got a
wonderful.
wonderful crop, you know. But then,
The next 6 were bad.
yeah, we
Dry.
didn't get rain and the ground was soil light, you know,
It was a sandy,
yeah.
We didn't get the farm we thought we were gonna get because the heirs backed out. We ended up taking this because we had our
We
down
should-
payment.
We didn't, you know, we didn't have the experience.
But we got by Nels.
Yeah.
Hilda.
yeah.
It was a.
And
it was a-
Mrs. Johnson
Yeah,
across
and
the.
Art.
Niall.
Art
Art
and
Nels.
Yeah.
Yeah, Art
And who
Nels.
knows what other seeds the Lord planted
Yeah.
there in the lives
Mrs.
of
Kittleson
us.
for the school.
Yeah.
So then
She was a good Christian
We
lady.
went back to, Sioux Falls, I went to Sioux Falls, and,
But you
That's
worked-
when you
I got
started
got a
working.
No,
job.
he worked in Minnesota too.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He was a.
First,
Oh, yeah, yeah, you worked at the Pew Factory.
Well, he worked before that,
I
too.
worked at a machine shop up
Yeah.
in
Oh.
He
Glenwood.
worked nights.
Oh, I didn't.
Well, I get
Kinda
it done at midnight.
midnight, yeah.
I'd go to
Mhm.
work at 4 and work at midnight.
While the vehicles or whatever were off the road.
No,
Was
it
it
was
Burke
just,
County or?
no, it was a
Machine
machine
shop.
shop,
Hmm.
and they
Made
run different
reloaders,
shifts.
didn't they?
Yeah.
Oh,
Gun reloaders,
oh,
yeah.
I
So I
see.
ran a
So-
lathe, a turret lathe, not, it was an automatic turret lathe, you
Mhm.
know.
So it's like, almost like the factory, then they made
Yeah,
Mhm.
machines there. Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
thought it was working
It
on
was good, we,
repairing or
and
something.
we got such good pay. We got, $42 a week.
Mhm.
Wow.
First thing we do is go down to Carl's and buy 10 pounds of hamburger.
Wow. Because that's how come we have so many recipes for hamburger.
He made it stretch with oatmeal
Yeah.
and eggs. We
Yeah.
had eggs, chickens for a while, and
Yeah.
cows, and baby pigs in the basement for a while. And after that, we didn't have pigs anymore ever.
But then, it must have been after the crops finally were just, it was like there was no more to stretch. And then you started commuting to Sioux Falls, right?
Well,
Yeah,
not very much commuting, really. He stayed mostly.
I'd stay with Grandma Rose down there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd come home on the weekend, but that didn't last all that long.
About 3 months. It was quite a few months in a way. It didn't, after it was over, it
Well,
wasn't
yeah.
so bad. But that was a long time in those times.
Yeah. Well, you didn't drive.
I never hardly went to town, no.
You didn't
I couldn't-
drive?
I knew how, but I didn't drive
Uh-huh.
because I never got a license in Minnesota.
But you wouldn't have had a car when he was.
No,
No.
but she lived close to
Yeah.
Terrace, you
Yeah.
could get in.
I remember running down there
Yeah.
for errands.
And Alice throwing money down
Yeah.
from the,
That's my first money memory actually, is her throwing, and then getting a chance to spend it to buy candy for
all the kids.
everybody at home.
Well, it was
And what
about
would be
10
the
cents,
best thing? Yeah, it was a dime wrapped
so it
in
would
paper.
spread around.
So then we moved down, we got a house then to live in from Omer Peterson.
From down near Canton?
No, it wasn't Omer
It-
Peterson, it was,
Omer was farming the land.
yeah,
I can't even remember who it was.
I had it on the tip of my tongue, but I forgot.
But anyway, we were there for, what, 2 years pretty near.
And that was where
Lived by
we went to
Jules
the
then.
Hawkinston school there then. So I remember walking
Marie
to that
Madalin
school.
was
Yeah.
the teacher.
And then we rented a farm then up by Sioux Falls there. That came up.
And
So I
where-
think that's probably when you kids figured that was the most like home, you know, because,
We stayed there long,
yeah, we
Right.
stayed there for
7
years.
15 years?
14, I think that was,
Yeah.
something like
14,
that.
15,
From what, 64?
We were only up in Minnesota for 7 years, I think.
And we didn't live on, for Omer Farm, I can't remember. Cape, what was his name? Keep? What was it? Keep, yeah. I can't remember his last name. That's where we got horses from Gross, then,
Oh,
the ponies.
Well, I worked at
because you
Gross
were
then.
working with them.
I got a few
And
shekels.
construction, was that for Henry Carlson?
No, that was for Ray Bennett.
Ray Bennett, oh, okay, yeah.
That was in the home
Yeah.
building, yeah. I never got into other construction until now, you know, 'cause see, a lot of this, I'd never had any training in carpentry or anything.
Well, you did before we got married.
Well, yeah, but I just did a
So,
little bit.
yeah, you had a little bit of background in that, not much, but a little.
Mhm.
But I had some background, but not an awful lot.
And then, the house you're in now, you've been there how long already?
Well,
Well, we moved there in 79. Well, it's almost 7.
27 years?
Yeah. We farmed at 28, I think now.
That's already a long time. That's the longest of any place,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
That you guys, or before you guys even were together, the longest.
Longest time.
And you were mentioning that out of all those houses, there were several that you were the last, we were the last family, or you were the last couple?
Yeah,
or-
we were the last ones to live in.
We were the last ones in Rugna's place. And down Red Overseas place, we were the last ones. And we were at, that one up by Klondike, we were the last one. And then up at by Sioux Falls, we were the
The
last
old,
one.
what
The
we
old
call the
farm.
old farm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about that treat place, or
No,
Teach,
they
that's
bought
still
it.
there.
Yeah,
It
it's
is still there.
Yeah, they
Isn't
bought it.
that-
They thought that was wonderful. 'Cause it was cleaned up so nice, you know.
yeah.
At least 3 rooms.
Yeah,
were-
they had such a nice home to live in, you know.
Oh.
Cause they're a poor family too.
Mhm.
They had a lot of kids, didn't they?
No, they didn't have, it was just,
I thought they had a lot of boys.
no, they had 2 boys. 2 boys that been in the service, they were the ones who more or less bought the land, see.
That might have seemed like a lot before you even started having yours.
That's possible.
As a single child. So it's really fun to hear about Dad's background and this country boy, you
Mhm.
know? And then, how, you're a city girl, Mom.
Well, but Grandma
You were
always
a
liked the
city
country.
girl.
My
Did
grandma,
she?
Yeah.
Grandma
She
Turner?
thought the farmers were all rich.
Grandma said to
Oh.
marry a rich farmer.
Oh. Uh-huh.
Little
The
did
only
she
one
know.
that did it was Pam. She thought she married rich.
Yeah. So, Mom, tell us about, I know we were talking this weekend a little bit, and you said, I don't remember much about growing up, but partly I can understand that might be, because if you don't talk with siblings about, remember when we did
Well, I
this
had
or
my
that?
cousin
or-
Jim. He was
Oh, yeah.
about 2 years younger.
And they
than I
live
was.
nearby you?
No, they lived up on North Minnesota Avenue, just a little ways from the penitentiary.
Mm-hmm.
So I had him pretty much all the time. And then Edith's kids. Grandma's cousin Edith had a couple of daughters that
Mhm.
they always got my clothes. Because Grandma always got me nice clothes. I don't know if she bought them new or she got them from somebody. I can't remember.
Which grandma are you talking about?
My mom.
Your mom?
Yeah.
Grandma Rose.
I don't know. And Grandma Turner always bought me nice things.
Well, and she sold so much too. They were both subjected,
I don't remember they sold me clothes though.
didn't they?
I don't remember if they did.
So what house were you born in? Were you born in home or did they go
No,
to the
I had to go to
hospital?
the hospital. I don't really know the first house I even went to. I would guess it was probably the duplex, but I don't know because they lived in one of the apartments.
I think it was the Mo Hospital that I was born in.
No, I was born in McKinnon.
Oh.
I don't think so.
Oh, yes, I was born in McKinnon.
Were you?
She was there, she should know.
My grandmother, my dad was Catholic and so was Franny, you know.
Well, yeah, I know.
And I was born in McKinnon. Yeah, I know that.
So how many houses did you live in before you
I don't
got
really know.
married?
Not very many. I remember the little brown house in the alley and then the.
And that was
house.
kitty corner across the alley from the house
It
that
wasn't
mainly
kitty
you
corner,
grew
it
up?
was just across the alley.
Okay.
Straight across
Just
the alley.
pretty much.
Where Grandma's shop was,
Okay,
yeah.
I guess I kinda think it was
No,
kind of up a
yeah.
little bit of a hill.
Well,
to
it was
get-
up a hill, but it was
Yeah.
still straight.
Yeah, okay.
To the west. So that was really the only two houses I remember living in before I was married.
But then, how old were you when your parents divorced?
Oh, I was only 4 or 5.
4 or 5. So then you did go and spend time here and there with your dad, wherever he was?
Yeah, either Pipestone or Watertown.
Oh, okay.
Then he went to service, so, in 41, so I wasn't very old.
Mhm.
And I think he did like you said, Kenny did. He sent some money home through the service. So Grandma Rose
Support
always
you.
worked, yeah.
Mhm.
She worked in a grocery store and where else. Then she worked for the V. McKinney and started her drapery shop.
Mhm.
Grandma Turner helped her with that. I stayed alone a lot in the brown house with Judy, the dog. I named a dog after my cousin.
Oh. So, pretty soon after your dad had gone away, then Grandma Turner came to live with you right away
Oh, we,
then?
no,
Or was she
we
already
went to live
living?
with them.
She went to live with
Oh.
Grandma Turner.
So,
She
so
had
your
the
folks
houses.
never had their own house?
No, they lived in an apartment with Grandma. And then we did live in Colorado when I started kindergarten. I suppose they stayed with Aunt Amanda there and Uncle Jim there. I don't know. Never really asked.
Uh-huh. So you went to kindergarten?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Out in Adams City, Colorado. Or
So do
first
you
grade.
have a teacher that you have a memory of?
Yeah.
That you thought was really helpful?
My kindergarten teacher in Sioux Falls, Miss Jameson.
Uh-huh.
She had a monkey.
She had a monkey.
I'm sure it was a hand puppet, but we thought it was a real puppet, a real monkey that she'd take out of her closet.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a different way of looking at coming out of the closet.
I'm sure it was a
The
hand
monkey's
puppet.
out of the closet.
That was probably my favorite teacher. I had a lot of nice teachers, so they were all good teachers.
Did you like school?
Yeah, I liked school.
She was always a good student.
I liked
I know
school.
anybody, you had mentioned that Ann had you, Liz had you write some things because of your handwriting, but anybody who's ever, that I know that has ever, oh, your mother has beautiful handwriting.
I liked
You
school.
do. So I can't imagine, you must have practiced a lot. Now you practice so much you don't like to write in this day and age.
Well, there was a long time in Minnesota that I didn't write, and I couldn't write very well,
Wow.
because I hated to write letters. I think after I got the knitting machine, I started writing more, because I wrote every pattern down, so I could,
Oh.
if, if you had a sleeve or something you had to make to like, I started writing a lot more.
So, I remember you would share that you couldn't ever go to bed before midnight, or something.
No.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, Grandma Turner had those apartments. That was the way
Mhm.
she made her living, because she didn't ever work. She
So
was
it was like
widow.
a big house and it was
No,
a
it was
duplex?
several. She had 2 houses.
Oh, she did?
And so the duplex was like 3
Oh.
houses, actually. So she had
What
3
did she have to,
furnaces.
have to furnish the furnace and the other ones too?
Oh, yes.
So she'd have to go to another place?
The house next door on 3rd and
Oh.
Dakota, right on the
Oh,
corner,
okay.
and then the duplex was right next to it on just
Oh.
Dakota Avenue. And they had 2 furnaces there and one in the other house. And at midnight, she'd always go and stoke the stoker she had then, because that would automatically feed the coal into the furnace.
Wow.
So she'd do that every night about midnight, 11:30 or something. We couldn't go to bed till Grandma did.
How come?
She didn't want us to. That was her house and that was her rules. I don't know what she had the
Mhm.
reason.
She just wanted
She wanted
company.
company, and she
Well,
probably
maybe
wanted
she
to
needed to know
make
someone
sure
was
that she
watching
was
that she
home.
was home safe. Cause in the
Yeah.
ice or
Yeah.
something, you never know. And
It was.
you had to watch for each other.
Yeah.
And
So,
you were the family. You had.
Yeah, we just waited up for her. When you got up at 7 o'clock, you didn't get to sleep in. Ever, even when I started going with your dad, if we were out later, you still had to be up by 7. Getting to bed late was no excuse to stay in bed.
Usually didn't get you to bed though. I usually got you home, it's just the weekends more or less, so
Yeah,
time we
it was
did.
later.
Uh-huh. Well, you're busy working. People didn't go out and do things, so weekend was the time to
Yeah.
go do the social things and.
Yeah, they
Well, it
go
was Friday,
Saturday.
Saturday night dance.
Yeah, Saturday night, see, and then you could usually sleep in on Sunday, you know, or
Mhm.
might have to get up and do chores, but then you get the rest afterwards.
But Mom, you did get a chance to have some pampering, I guess, maybe, I don't know if you'd call
I
it that, but
suppose. Grandma's
some kids didn't get to
spoiled.
do some of the special things, like I remember you talk about roller skating.
Oh
and
yeah, had to do that 7 or 8 times a week.
That was
Because, mostly because Grandma wanted to go watch us, so I had to go because she wanted to go watch us, and she had the car.
So did you ever feel like, oh, I wish I didn't have to, or?
I don't think so.
Uh-huh. Well, what else are you gonna do? You'd stay home and sew or crochet or something probably,
Go
or
in the
make a
shop
quilt
and
or.
do some help,
Yeah.
and do some of my own sewing. I had that mannequin I sewed for a lot.
Mm.
But they'd help you then, show you how to
Yeah.
do it, so I'm sure that was your tutoring, really.
That was my tutoring.
For
sure.
all the clothes you'd sew for kids
Yeah.
later,
Mhm.
and yourself and all of
Yeah.
that.
The neighbors,
Uh-huh.
but she did work, when we got married, she was working in a tailor shop.
Hmm.
I was working at Weatherwax's then.
Yeah.
They had a tailor shop to alter the clothes when men bought suits.
So
Right.
you,
Worked in a tailor shop before that.
oh, okay. But you went to Washington High,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where several of us graduated from, the same school. So you went to city schools all the time.
All the time.
Hey, yeah, she never saw the country till after she was married.
So
Oh,
when you,
yes, I did, because we went up to Minneapolis.
Yeah, but you
Up in
never knew what
Wentworth.
it was living like.
No, not to live there.
so, so did you know what it was gonna be like to live in the country and be a farmer's wife, or what did you think?
She wasn't thinking.
The hardest thing was not having a check come in regular,
Oh.
because I'd worked enough that I had a regular check coming in. So.
Mhm.
But I had to pay room and board to Grandma.
See, on farming, you gotta,
Yeah, you had to pay, because Grandma didn't have any way of making a living. Her apartments, you know, because she furnished them and paid all the bills.
but then she'd work for your mother.
Yeah.
She did a lot for your mother, I don't know.
Well,
what your
Grandma
mother
paid her, Mom paid her too. It wasn't a lot, but she got paid. And she helped in the shop, maybe not by the hour. I don't remember exactly how that worked. But
But
they worked it out.
they worked long hours. They worked clearly midnight.
all past midnight a lot of times.
Well, deadlines
Yeah.
and if a person kept their word, that's what.
Yeah,
It
and
was.
she did wonderful work.
So,
Used to criticize when she'd see a slipcover in the White House that it didn't fit right.
on TV or something, yeah. Well, there was pride in what she did.
Oh, yeah.
So, when you were growing up, though, Dad had Grandma Nordley, but was there a Christian person in your life growing up?
Well, I think in their own way they were. They sent me to Sunday school.
But they didn't go.
We never went to church.
Uh-huh.
No. But I went to Sunday school.
Mm-hmm.
Was the one down on Spring? What was that? Was it? I think it was a Methodist.
First Congressional.
I think it was Methodist. Spring way down on
Mm-hmm.
by where you could use to park your car at Washington
Oh,
High.
okay.
I think that was a Methodist church. But I don't remember any Sunday school teachers or anything really. I don't remember much about being a kid, except a few bad things.
Like, what would that be?
Catching the train to go to the roundhouse,
Oh.
stealing watermelons from the penitentiary, falling in the dikes around, up north by the Pen. And my Aunt Gladys would dried out my long stockings and that because we didn't want Grandma to know, or she'd get mad at me. My mother wasn't so much that way, but Grandma would.
She was pretty strict,
Old
stern.
fashioned. Her mother was very stern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She even I never saw a picture of her smiling, Grandma John's,
So that would have been
Grandma Turner's mom,
your great grandma.
my great grandma. They were very stern in the older days, Yeah.
That's about it.
So, well, I have just a couple other little things. What would you say is each of your favorite Bible verse that through the years you've, and maybe different times it's different things, but have found the most comfort? What has given you the most comfort? And we're in a day and age that marriages just don't often last like yours has. And
I don't know if I've got any that would really be special. There's a lot of them, that I remember.
I think you just gotta put them all together, and that's what helps you.
well, I know for a long time you had God is in control, and then Philippians.
Well,
and,
yeah.
No, I learned that one even after we lived in this house, and it's been a real blessing. But no, I always liked the one Psalm 127 with the children.
Mm-hmm.
But, no, I think it's just
Probably,
all of them.
believe in me and thou shalt be saved,
Trust in the
God is love,
try
that's
to
the
do
name.
the right thing.
That's what God is.
It's just like when you have a song, when you hear one that you like, you think that's your favorite. Then you hear another and you think that's your favorite. So,
Well, God's word is that way, don't you think?
yeah, it
Comforting,
just all
it's
gives you
just
comfort
right
and strength.
when the need is there.
So many times you get the right
But
verse
anyway,
when you
we
need
had the
it.
tough years, and then it seemed like after I turned my life over to Christ, then it started turning around. And even like when we were raising you kids, a lot of times we thought, well, boy, it'd be nice to get a little extra, to buy this or that we didn't really need, but we'd like to have. And pretty near always, and I still can't believe how it would do that, but we get pretty near right down to the last penny, just exactly what we needed.
But I think the first year I remember that we really went out and did anything extra with the money was 74.
Yeah, that's the first vacation.
Well, no, not the vacation even, but that was the year you bought a new refrigerator and a new stove, and you also purchased the television that surprised me. And I thought, oh, you paid a lot for that stove and refrigerator, but I didn't complain, and here they delivered a TV too. So I thought the stove and refrigerator cost as much as the TV with the stove and refrigerator.
But see,
I think that was the year I got my sewing machine
that
too.
was in
the neck.
Really?
It was in '73. Bonnie.
73, well, I
Yeah.
thought it was 74. Maybe we bought it in 74 then, some of it, because we had money.
Yeah, but
But it was right in there.
at that time, when we got at that farm in Sioux Falls, we ended up, we had a lot of pasture there. And so we figured we should try and get some livestock to use up the pasture. So I wanted some stock cows, so I went along with this Ray Larson. And we went up and looked up at Watertown for some, and they weren't any good. On the way back, he said, well, let's stop here. I said, Burnell Johnson is,
You had a sale there?
yeah, is selling all of his purebred Angus. So we stopped there. So Ray, I was just looking for 20 head. I talked to the banker about buying 20 heads. And here there were 44 in the ring there. So, well, Ray says, I think I know somebody to take the rest. He says, I'm gonna tie them together. So he tied them all up that he'd give, so I think it was $225 or $30 a piece for all 44s. So we ended up getting them. So then we hauled them all down to my farm, you know, because I had a place for them. And the next day, why Ray, he comes and he didn't even see me. He didn't come and look for. He went in and told Ma. He said, "Well, you tell Don that I think them cattle are all his, 'cause that other guy doesn't."
You'd only gotten permission for 20.
So I went down to the bank and I told him, you know, what the deal was. And well, he said, why would you ever do a thing like that? He says, what are you going to do with them now? Well, I said, we only ordered 20, you know. And I said, it's up to the commission company. They paid for them. I haven't paid nothing. So all I want to pay for is just 20 head. But I said, I think they're a real good deal. I said, really, I really do, you know, because they were starting to have calves already, you know, and they were purebred and they were good quality, and there wasn't much money at that time because the cattle prices were kind of low. And, well, yeah. So I said, I'd sell some of them. I said, we can sell a few of them and then keep the rest. We did that, and from that day on, you know, those cattle always, they made us money all the time, you know, really, we always.
That was what we got for the house, farm down
Yeah,
payment.
that's what we got the farm
Yeah,
payment for
yeah.
the house.
So
And
what
then-
looked
so
like
Ma-
a disaster was a blessing.
So when she got all of her stuff, she was selling bulls at home in the daytime while I was working, and I was working so many hours. I went to work for Swift then, see, and they put me out to this packing house.
Oh, Mealman's.
Stinky place.
And, you know,
I
and
remember.
then I'd work all day long, and then a lot of stuff we had to do at night when the plant was shut down. And worked Saturdays, and they had to, sometimes I even worked Sundays, was double time, you know, and Saturdays are time and a half, and we were working so many hours, and boy, I was getting checks like you never even believed, you know.
Wouldn't sound like much now, but.
But it was, you know.
It was for the time.
Yeah, and then she was selling these bulls, you know, and we found out after selling a few of them that farmers, they all like to dicker on the price. So what you do is you start a price up quite a little higher than what you want to sell it for, and let them talk you down to what you wanted in the first place.
And they feel like they got a
And
bargain.
they feel like they got a bargain. And it worked, really.
It worked.
Yeah. And they were in good shape because I kept them in and I grain fed them, you know, and they were in good shape, you know, really, and they're good quality stuff. I'll never forget this Manfred Hill from Canton, he bought one. And he had kind of the last one, and I think we had one more, I had two left, and he took the one. And he come back then, following spring. Hey, he says, you know, that bully had sold me, he says, that sure doesn't look very good. He wanted to go in and look at mine, and he went in, and he said, is that the same bull that we had, that mine was in with? I said, yeah. I said, that's the only one I got left. And that was smaller than the one he got. Well, his didn't look very good. He said it really was down. Well, I said, Manfred, it says, you know, you knew they were young yearlings. And I said, they should have been having grain. I said, I imagine you've been letting it run with the cows out in the corn stalks. Well, yeah, he had. And he admitted, yeah, he said, they should have had grain. He said, it's not your fault, he said. He found out that it, you know, really.
So there was an opportunity for a lesson for someone else?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose this last year has been one of the kind of quite a milestone year.
I don't know.
For you guys, but.
I think we've kind of left that up to the Lord too, so.
Yeah, it hasn't been as bad as I thought it would be.
No, I didn't either.
And it went fast, so it couldn't have been as bad as you thought. Could have thought. Just one more year.
Yeah, we got another year out of it, you know, really.
So you don't really believe in the people that say, oh, I don't like that I'm getting older. There's a way to look, is it half full or half empty? It's like God's given me more.
You gotta realize that each phase of your life has good and bad, and that's just life.
And it's like,
There's a blessing, and
There's
there's
one-
things you wished you'd have done different, but,
Well, there are many couples at your age that don't have each other, and
well, yeah.
that's a huge part
That's
of
what
it.
Margaret always says, you know, when she calls for the prayer chain. Well, you're lucky you got Donnie. This Trig died, what, 10 years ago?
yeah, he
10 years
was only
ago.
75 when he
Yeah.
died.
So she says, you know, that's really nice. And his dad talks to her too when she calls about the prayer chain. He answers the phone. So that is a blessing. Dad's been really good. See what nice hands he has? 'Cause he
Yeah,
does
I've never
dishes.
seen such nice nails and.
And he even cut them before we came this
Dishwater
weekend.
does wonders.
And he hasn't even done dishes for a couple of days.
Well, I think that'll do for today, but I know I
Yeah.
have a bunch of other questions too. I wrote another thing and I couldn't find it. But,
Oh.
so is there something, you know, each person goes through life and your life is built up with lessons on all different
But
angles.
it's hard to recognize the lessons because nothing ever happens the same way.
Oh, no, but.
So you have to relate back to them and
See,
not
one
think it's
of-
going to happen the same way.
One of our main prayers has always been that you should all receive eternal life. And
That's only through Christ.
yeah,
Yeah.
the circle won't be broken. And that's our main prayer.
And even Margaret the other night said that's what she was from a farm up by Oldham. And she said that's the way my father always ended every prayer, that we'd all meet in heaven. And that's what you want.
Oh, sure. Well, this is a blink of an eye
Yeah,
Yeah, it
that's
is.
right.
compared to eternity.
If it's even that much, you know.
We have no idea what's in store for us, and that's what the Bible says. You haven't even, he said, 'cause I'm not gonna tell you because you couldn't even get a glimpse.
You're not ready
of-
to understand.
No.
That's what Adrian Rogers said the other day. If you think that the streets of gold and all that they describe as something, he said, just wait till you get there. It'll still amaze you. Be so much different and better.
But while we're here, we make memories and there are things that can be done and through
But
the
yeah.
experiences,
But
what's
you
the
know-
wise thing to pass on to your children and your grandchildren to
But then now they said, now what if one of yours doesn't get there? Well, he said that probably you aren't even gonna remember that person.
Well, there won't be any tears, so you won't remember it,
No.
because that would make you sad.
Well, they say that when the Pharisees tried to trick Jesus, they said, you know, this man dies and leaves a wife, and then all
Mhm.
these brothers, whose is she when
Yeah.
they get to heaven? And he says,
There
you
ain't
don't
no marriages.
understand.
There ain't no marriages.
It's not
Yeah.
like that.
No.
So we're so limited in these earthly
Well, what-
vessels.
What God is getting is He's getting His people out of this earth that wasn't made to get that kind of people out of, really, you know. Because all of our instincts are worldly, you know.
Mhm. But yet, there is that flicker, there's that spiritual thing, but anyway.
I think that's about all you gotta know about us for a while. But I
It's-
think probably I better.
You know
go.
what though,